Welcome back, everybody! Today we re-gone. Now I'll be taking a look at the 3 most realistic top horror stories from the petting zoo of forgotten animals. If you haven't seen my first 2 videos on this topic yet, make sure to go check them out. They're just as scary as this one, and people just love them. Let's get right into it. Number 3, The Sound of Death. This story was written by a user. When I was about 6 years old in the early 90s, I went with my dad to a zoo that had recently opened up in our area. It was on a big zoo, but it did have some pretty interesting animals, and it seemed well kept up. The star of the show was supposed to be a white tiger, but sadly it wasn't there that day. My favorite part of the zoo was the petting zoo. Now I live in the city, and do you really ever see any farm animals? Except when I visit a petting zoo or something like that. So for me, it was very cool to get up close and personal with all of them. I remember seeing goats, sheep, rabbits, and even a small camel. Then there was an area where you could feed the animals yourself. You had to pay extra for this, but my dad said yes. There were 2 things you could feed, a pig and a donkey. I wanted to feed the pig, but for some reason my dad only gave me enough food to feed the donkey. So off I went over to the donkey and started feeding him. He was super cute, and as he ate, he started making these weird clicking noises. I thought it was kind of funny, and I continued feeding him. But then I noticed that the noise was coming from his mouth. I stopped feeding him and stood back and listened intently. It was definitely a clicking noise, and not a normal animal sound. My dad was nearby, so I pointed over at the donkey and made the noise. Dad looked confused, shrugged, and went back to looking at the tigers. Well, the clicking noise got louder and more frequent. By this time, I was standing a few feet away from the donkey, and I could hear it breathing heavily. Then it took a step toward me. I started to panic and ran to my dad, screaming about the donkey clicking and coming towards me. Of course, he didn't believe me. And as we got closer to the donkey pen, the clicking became more urgent, and now I could hear what sounded like gurgling. My dad stopped and stared at the donkey, who was now standing right in front of us. That's when we both heard the sound of flesh tearing and bone breaking. We screamed and ran as fast as we could away from the petting zoo. To this day, I still wonder what that poor animal was trying to tell us. Was it warning us? It doesn't seem like any type of noise a healthy animal would make. Maybe it was choking on its own saliva or something worse. I'll never know. Number 2, a horrifying display of fangs. This story was written by a user. This happened many years ago when I was still living at home. I think I was around 14. We decided to take a trip to the local zoo. After we'd seen everything, we decided to head to the petting zoo. As we were walking through, we could hear loud screams coming from inside. My mom assumed they were coming from the goats, which can be pretty loud. However, as we got closer, we realized it was coming from a little girl and the animal she was holding. I didn't see the animal at first, because the girl was blocking it. But after the girl let out another blood-curdling scream, the animal dropped its head down and I saw it. It was a rabbit. Well, it looked nothing like a normal rabbit. Its eyes were completely black and soulless, and it had huge fangs that looked like those of a snake. I couldn't help myself. I burst out laughing. People nearby gave me dirty looks, but I couldn't stop. It looked so ridiculous with its tiny body and huge fangs, and then it happened again. The rabbit dropped its head and exposed those fangs once again. Only this time the girl holding it dropped it, and it hopped away. Everyone gasped. The rabbit disappeared and the girl started crying. I was still laughing uncontrollably. My mom dragged me away before I made things worse. To this day, I still don't understand what I found so funny. But whenever I see a rabbit, I can't help but smile and keep an eye on its mouth. Number 1, never look away. This story was written by a user. This happened when I was about 6 years old. I asked my parents if we could go to the petting zoo. Of course, they said yes. When we arrived, I was excited to see all of the animals. While we were there, I saw bunnies. goats, and sheep. I remember petting a fluffy white rabbit. I loved how soft it was. I petted it for a bit, and then we moved on to the other animals. After we were done at the petting zoo, my mom said it was time to go home. On the way out, we had to walk past the bunny enclosure. I wanted to say goodbye to my new friend, so I walked over to the cage to pet it one more time. As I reached in to pet it, it suddenly jumped up and hung onto my hand with its teeth. I screamed and tried to pull my hand away, but it wouldn't let go. At this point, I was panicking. I kicked and screamed for help. My mom came running over and smacked the rabbit on the head with her purse. It finally let go of my hand and hopped back into the corner of the cage. I looked at my hand in disbelief. It was covered in blood. My mom picked me up and cradled me while asking if I was okay. I was shocked. I didn't feel any pain, but I could see blood everywhere. My mom rushed me to the car and drove me home. She called my dad on the way and told him to take care of the situation. When we got home, my dad took me to the bathroom to clean my wounds. I remember sitting on the cold tile floor while he cleaned and bandaged my hand. I don't remember much else after that. I assume he drove me to the hospital. Looking back, I'm so thankful that my mom and dad were there for me. If it hadn't been for their quick reactions, I could have lost my hand. That was terrifying. Thank you guys so much for watching. Those were 3 of the most realistic top horror stories from the petting zoo of forgotten animals. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed and stay tuned for more content. See you soon. Bye.